Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, along with my partner in crime, the man, the legend, Chris King. Chris, good to see you, my friend. What's happening today on this beautiful Wednesday?
Oh, well, not a whole lot down here. I mean, we're still looking forward. We're still a few days out, obviously, from the wild card weekend. So it just means your regular run-of-the-mill action. It was nice to see West Virginia took care of Oklahoma State last night. The Cowboys looked just as bad as we thought they would, as they struggled to muster 60 points in that 10-point loss. And, I think we should stay away from ranked teams for a while. We talked about Baylor was going to beat Texas Tech. That didn't happen. We talked about USC being undefeated. Of course, they turned around and lost. So, it was nice of them to both not show up in those games.
Well, they were kind. They could have helped us out, but sometimes you just can't. You can't bet on everybody just being the right people at the right time, right?
On the plus side, we did say the Predators would beat the Avalanche. It took overtime, but they did.
Yeah, there's that too.
So I mean, you take your wins where you can get them.
That's for darn sure. That is absolutely for darn sure. Before we get started, we've got a lot of good college basketball and some NHL and some good NBA games tonight. Let's talk about two things going on with our buddies and our sponsors at the Sportsbook at Caesars, okay? So here's what's going on. Now, we've been telling you that, if you make your first bet with Caesars on their app or online, then what you're going to do is you're going to have to use, and it's in the show box below, Winners and Whiners. It's they've got a special code for us, and it's video winners. If you use video winners, what they'll do is they're going to match your first wager dollar for dollar up to $1,000. Now, that's a great deal. So that's all that information is in the show box below. So pay attention to it, folks. It's very important that you know that. Okay, it's a lot of fun. That what Caesar's going to do if you use our code video winners, then they're going to reward you by going forward and giving you a dollar for dollar match all the way up to $1,000. Now, we are all celebrating because in this great state of New York, they now are allowing sports betting, and so the deal they have for that in the state of New York is pretty cool. What they've got there is they have a situation where if you bet, if you start, let me just get the information here real quick for you, because it's really fantastic. They're going to give you up to $3,000. Here's how it works. You get $300 in bonus cash just to sign up. Plus, they're going to match your first deposit up to $3,000, okay? And the promo code is Whiners New, okay? That's Whiners New. Whiners New is the promo code. That's in the show box below. So let's take a look at that. That's called the Empire State Royal Welcome. You get $300 in bonus cash on all signups. Plus, the folks at Caesars will match your first deposit up to $3,000 if you use the promo code Whiners New. Okay, and that's all in the show box below. And as we said before, and we've said many times, you have to be over 21 to participate. And of course, what we want you to do is to bet responsibly. Okay, all right, cool. So those folks in the state of New York, we welcome you. And Caesars welcomes you with one heck of a deal. And so from there, we're going to go to the Big Ten, where we're going to play some hoops tonight. And Chris, you're going to fill us in on what's going on tonight in the Big Ten.
Yeah, it's going to be at the Breslin Center. Michigan State, I believe they're ranked 10th in the country. They're favored by 11.5 points tonight over Minnesota. After we saw Minnesota stink it up last week against Illinois, I don't have any faith in them in this one. The Spartans have played good basketball. Minnesota 10-3. Michigan State 13-2. Spartans are 7-0 at the Breslin Center this year. Minnesota, they've gone 3-1 on the road, but they haven't really played anyone. Michigan State's 101st in scoring offense at 75.8 points a game. They're 23rd in the nation in rebounding. They're 77th in field goal percentage, and they shoot well from three-point range, ranking 13th in the country by shooting 39.3% from beyond the arc. A big key in this game, it's something that we talked about last week when Minnesota played Illinois at home and got trounced, is going to be rebounding. The Spartans, they out-rebound their opponents by 8.7 rebounds a game. That's 15th in the country. Minnesota, they're 331st. They get out-rebounded by 5.6 rebounds per game. So you're talking about more than a 14 rebound differential between those. When you look at the numbers between those two teams, it killed Minnesota against Illinois because Kofi Cockburn ate them for lunch. And we talked last week, too, in that case. Eric Curry at 6'9", 235 is not a guy you want playing center in the Big Ten. There are too many big guys in the Big Ten that will kill you inside. Cockburn's one of them. Jackson Davis of Indiana is another. Those kind of guys are just going to kill teams like Minnesota that don't have any size to speak of. And Minnesota, they don't score a ton. They're 244th in scoring offense. They average 69.6 points a game. They're 144th in field goal percentage. When you get down to it, the Golden Gophers 1-5-1 against the spread in their last 7 on Wednesday. They're 0-3-1 in their last 4 overall. Meanwhile, Michigan State's 4-0 in their last 4 against teams with a winning record, and 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with a winning percentage above 600. Yeah, I get Minnesota's got a pretty record, but the fact remains they haven't beaten anybody, and they're not going to beat Michigan State and East Lansing, given the fact that they don't have the size to contain anybody. I mean, we talked about it. I don't know how many times we drilled it into you guys last week that Minnesota is a small team. And, it's going to cost them a lot in conference play. You look at Purdue. Zach Edey is 7'4", and Trevion Williams is a big man. Like I said, Jackson Davis at Indiana is big. Cockburn is 7 feet 3, just a couple biscuits short of 300 pounds. Minnesota does not have the size to contain anybody in the Big Ten. It's going to cost them again tonight as they lose another conference game. On the plus side, they'll play Nebraska eventually.
Yeah, there's always Nebraska, and for that matter, Rutgers. But Nebraska's definitely.
Yeah, but I can't pick out Rutgers.
I know, yeah. Ron Harper Jr. Did us in on that one.
And let's also not forget, Rutgers also thrashed Nebraska over the weekend by 28 points. So
that's true.
Rutgers isn't as bad as people might think. But just to point out that fact about what I was saying about the size factor, Jim, in those 2 games last week, because Minnesota lost to Illinois by 23, Cockburn had 29 points and 10 rebounds. When they lost to Indiana, which was over the weekend, Trace Jackson Davis, 13 and 11. Minnesota cannot afford to get into a game where they have to try and keep up with a team like Michigan State, because they will get annihilated on the glass, and it's going to lead to their undoing. The Golden Gophers dead last in offensive rebounding percentage in the nation at 16.7%. On the flip side, Michigan State 39th at 33.8%. It's going to be a long night for Ben Johnson and the Golden Gophers as they take their 3rd straight loss. They've already lost to Michigan State at home, and that was an 8-point game. They're not going to have any more success here on the road. No,
and Tom Izzo and his teams usually protect the home floor pretty darn well. Let's go down to the O'Connell Center on the campus of the University of Florida.
I'm glad you remember what it was called, because they've got so many names, the Exact Tech Arena and all that other stuff.
Now, I like to call it's the official name of it's the Stephen O'Connell Convocation Center, better known to those of us in the area. By the way, it's right across the street from the Swamp, and it is the O-Dome. It's one of those dome stadiums that are domed arenas where, you've got the air that keeps the roof up, like the old Metrodome in Minneapolis, and the Sun Dome in South Florida, and the O-Dome in Gainesville are exactly the same. They were built by the same people. They look exactly alike, except for, of course, the colors are different. But far more than I'm telling you about the O-Dome. You should be talking about the basketball game as LSU travels down to Gainesville. And according to you, looks like a good shot at leaving Gainesville with a win.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange because last night this line had LSU by 1. Now they're suddenly a 2.5-point underdog, and there's been no injuries to speak of. I mean, Xavier Pinson is out, but he was ruled out last night for LSU, so I don't see why the numbers would suddenly shift. But I guess, maybe there's a lot of people jumping on Florida thinking that they're going to bounce back. But you look at it here, LSU's 14-1 this season. Florida's just 9-5. Tigers have come off back-to-back wins since their only loss of the season, which was a 15-point loss at Auburn, December 29th. You got to give credit to Bruce Pearl. His guys are playing hard despite the fact that if memory serves, they won't be playing in the tournament due to all the sanctions down by the NCAA. But, LSU, they bounced back since that loss. They beat Kentucky at home. They beat Tennessee at home. Those are a couple of tough teams for sure. Meanwhile, Florida's coming off back-to-back losses. They lost at home to Alabama by 13. They lost at home to Auburn by 12. They lost on the road to Auburn by 12. So they're coming in with 2 straight losses. And now they have to face the team that's number 1 in the nation in defensive efficiency at LSU. The Tigers are also second in effective field goal percentage, holding teams at 41.3%. They force turnovers on more than 26% of opposing teams' possessions. They're 9th in 3-point defense, holding teams to 26.6% from beyond the arc. They're 8th in 2-point defense. And just to make it for good measure, they're 3rd in block percentage and 1st in steal percentage. So basically, good luck when it comes to scoring on LSU. The Tigers have yet to give up more than 70 points in a game this season. And in fact, the only team to reach the 70-point mark, Auburn.
There you go.
Other than that, nobody scored more than the 67 Tennessee put up in the last game. Beyond that, you have to go down to Wake Forest scoring 61 on a neutral floor back on November 27th. By comparison, they've held 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 opponents under 60 points. Good luck to the Gators when it comes to putting points on the board. They're going to have to win 47 to 45 or something like that.
Well, part of the problem that Florida has that I've seen anyway this year is they don't have an inside game. They really have problems inside.
Yeah, they've got Castleton, and that's about it. And they don't feed him the ball enough.
Yeah, and they're just not good inside. So if they don't hit from outside, or if they don't have, if they have an off night shooting threes, which seemingly they've had more off nights than good nights in that regard, they become a very perimeter team. And that really wasn't the way that Coach White had expected he was going to have when he started the season. But certainly at this point in time, the Gators have no inside game. And when you're playing against an LSU team, which is stacked inside, that doesn't bode well.
Yeah, it's like you just said about Florida shooting. If you look, they're, like I said, they're 148th in scoring offense, but they're just 252nd in field goal percentage, and they're 283rd in 3-point shooting at over 31%. And like you said, with no inside game, you're forced to shoot from the outside, and they're not a good team that can get away with that.
Well, that and the fact that if the other team knows you got to shoot from outside, then they don't have to protect the inside. And that's the case with the Gators so far this year. It's not been a good one.
Yeah, and like you said, just to point that out, Jim, like you said, they have to shoot from the outside, and LSU is a top 10 team in 3-point defense.
Right.
So that makes it even worse.
It's let's just say by every metric, this does not look like a good night for the Gators.
And that's like IC says over here. I don't know how LSU is an underdog against Florida. Neither do I. It doesn't make sense. I get Florida's at home. That doesn't mean a whole lot in this game. If you get right to it, I mean, sure, they're at home. They just lost to Alabama at home.
Yeah,
they lost to home.
Yeah.
Let's just take a look here, and just to give an idea of what Florida's 6-2 at home. I mean, I get LSU's only played 2 true road games, and they've split them. They beat Georgia Tech, and they lost to Auburn. On the flip side, Florida's home losses, they lost to Alabama, which is fine. And the other one, Jim, you remember we talked about this back in early December when they lost to Texas Southern, a team that had no wins going into that game.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they lost by 15 points.
Well, that was the week they fell out of the stunningly. They fell out of the top 25 in the nation in the polls. So no, it's look. Okay, could the Gators win tonight? Of course they could. You never know what might happen.
The funny thing is that loss to Texas Southern started the Tigers on a streak where they've won 5 of 6.
Well, there you go. Good for them. But the Tigers from LSU are a lot different than the Tigers from Southern.
That's true.
Let's head up to Vermont and see what the Catamounts are doing.
Yeah, the over in the America East, I know not a lot of people talk about that because it's a smaller conference, but Vermont's been good for years. John Becker's done a great job up there. They're going to face Stony Brook tonight. The Seawolves are 9-5. Vermont's 9-4. Remember we talked about this last week when New Hampshire was in town. We told you New Hampshire comes to Vermont. They pick up some maple syrup. They get thrashed on the basketball court, and they go home.
And have pancakes. Yeah.
Stony Brook's pretty much the same thing. They're going to come from Pennsylvania. They're going to go up to Vermont. They're going to pick up some maple syrup. They're going to get smashed on the basketball court, and they're going to go home. And like Jim said, have pancakes.
Right.
Vermont's 6-0 at home. Stony Brook's 1-4 on the road. Vermont is another one of those teams that will kill you defensively. They're 24th in scoring defense. They're 95th in field goal percentage defense, and they don't give up second chances. Minnesota, you could learn from Vermont.
Recruit. Yeah.
Stony Brook is 280th in scoring defense at 72.8 points a game. They're 326th in field goal percentage defense. They're 345th in 2-point defense, and they're 280th in effective field goal percentage defense. Stony Brook likes to run. So did New Hampshire. What did that lead to? A double-digit loss. Vermont's won 10 of the last 11 between these two teams. Stony Brook's 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 against teams with winning percentage above 600. Stony Brook's also 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 on the road. Vermont 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 overall. They're 4-1 in their last 5 against the spread at home. I told you to take Vermont last week against New Hampshire. I'm taking Vermont again tonight against Stony Brook. The Seawolves, they'll be in the mix come tournament time in the America East, but they're not getting the win on the road here. Interestingly enough, Stony Brook lost to Florida by 25 at home or on the road this season, just to tie that in there.
Just a very nice little segue from one to the other. That's good. Vermont, year in and year out in that America East has always been, they just automatically are penciled in. It's almost shock, to put them up there that until you can beat them, then you got problems. So that's where you got a situation with all that fun stuff going on.
Yeah, Vermont will make you hold the ball. Their opponents have the longest average possession length in the nation by holding for more than 19 seconds.
There you go.
Vermont's is going to grind it out and make you play their game. And that's not something that a team like Stony Brook wants to do. New Hampshire didn't want to do it last week, and like we said, it didn't pan out for them either.
Nope. All right. So let's move over to the NHL where we've got some games to be played.
Well, hold on, Jim, real quick.
Oh, we got another.
Right. You're right. Pinson is not playing, but you know what? Pinson wasn't playing last night, and LSU was listed as a favorite. This line shifted overnight, and everybody knew Pinson wasn't playing yesterday. It's not going to be a loss, I don't think, for LSU. Florida, like Jim said, they have no inside game whatsoever. They can't shoot from the outside, and the Tigers are excellent on the defensive end of the floor. Will Wade's got a deep bench. I don't think Mike White does.
No.
Can you attest to that?
Yeah, no, he doesn't. He had a lot of there were a lot of injuries that came his way right before the beginning of the season, and there is possibility that he might get some of these guys back in time for a late run, at perhaps making it to the SEC tournament. But I think that's pretty. That's one of those things that you're more of a hope for than you are actually looking at reality for the Gators, and doesn't do me favored to say that, but at the end of the day, we are here to be real. And
well, and the other big thing too is you look at the size factor. I mean,
yeah.
Hasselton is 6'11".
Right.
If you look at the rest of their starting lineup, DeRugi is 6'7", Fleming is 6'5", Jones is 6'3", Appleby is 6'1". Meanwhile, you're going up against an LSU team that's going to run. They've got guys that are 6'8", 6'9". They got a 7-footer that's a freshman that's playing well, and Efton Reed. You've got Eric Gaines can play the point with Pinson not playing. And you've got other guys that are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". They've got a lot of versatility where they can shuffle guys in and out. They're interchangeable pieces. And just think when Shaq's kid ever decides to come back and play basketball.
Right.
And the big thing, how is Florida going to contain Tari Eason?
They're not.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first from Jim Williams, Color Man of the Year, 17 years running.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch LSU play this year, because they actually are a very tough basketball team, and Bruce Pearl's built something there, and that's
We'll wait, Jim.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But
Bruce Pearl's done a good job at Auburn. Let's not take anything away from him.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl at Auburn. I mean, there's some teams in that conference that are pretty good.
Nate Oates has done a good job at Alabama. I'm still mad he left the University of Buffalo to go down there, but money talks, and Oates has done a good job. He's done something that Avery Johnson didn't do in Alabama, and that was put together a contender.
Right.
Then you got Kentucky. Vanderbilt's played decent basketball. You got Tennessee with Rick Barnes.
Yeah.
There's a half dozen good teams in the SEC.
Yeah.
Right there.
Florida isn't one of them at the moment. All right, let's go to the ice, get away from this college basketball, where it only pains me to listen. The Bruins and the Canadiens tonight on TNT.
Yep, our good buddy Albert probably going to be on the call for that one at the TD Garden.
Kenny will make the trip up I-95, across the bridge and into Boston, at the TD Bank Garden. The place.
Yeah, I still just miss the Boston Garden. With these corporate names.
And to play La Roboton, the Montreal Canadiens. Yes.
Yeah, Montreal. Let's face it. Montreal, I thought it was funny. Greg Wyshynski from ESPN compared Montreal to the Bippity Boppity Boutique at Disney World, because they got to pretend that they were Cinderella, made a Stanley Cup run, and now they turned into a pumpkin again.
Oh, there you go.
Canadians, they're 7-23-4. Boston 19-11-2. Boston's 9-6-1 on home ice. The Canadians 2-13-3 on the road. That's right, 2-13.
Say it with me, right?
Now, even worse, Montreal hasn't played since losing 5-2 on the road to Florida on New Year's Day. So you're talking about 11 days between games. They're going to have to knock the rust off there for sure. Boston's won 5-6. They whipped Washington 7-3 on the road Monday night. The Bruins are a middle of the pack team in scoring at 3.06 goals per game. Montreal's dead last. That's right. They got surpassed by the Cactus as far as scoring goes, and that's saying something.
That's telling you.
All year long how Arizona couldn't score to save their lives. Now they're past Montreal. The Canadians give up 4 goals a game on the road, and they only average 2.17. Jake Allen, 5-15-2 with a 3.10 goals against, a 903 save percentage, and 2 shutouts between the pipes for the Canadians against Linus Ullmark, formerly of the Sabres, now of the Bruins. He's 11-5-0 with a 257 goals against and a 917 save percentage. Interesting note for Boston, Tuukka Rask, back out of retirement, will be the backup for Ullmark tonight in net. I don't know what happened to Jeremy Swayman, but apparently Rask is going to be – they're going to try to see if he can be the savior for the Bruins, who have kind of floundered in the Atlantic Division this season. Montreal 5-2 in their last 27 as an underdog, 4-18 in their last 22 as a road underdog. Meanwhile, Boston 5-0 in their last 5 against the Eastern Conference, 5-1 in their last 6 overall. And Montreal is 2-6 in the last 8 meetings between these teams in Beantown. I got news for you. If you're a fan of the Canadians, they've also lost the last 4 meetings between these teams. if you're a fan of Montreal, it might be time to break out the old paper bag and go to your local poutine restaurant, and drown your sorrows in gravy and cheese.
Or you could go to, what is it? Oh goodness, the place where everybody likes to go. Bob, is it Bob? It's yeah, Tim Hortons. That's what I was trying to remember. Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons.
You gotta go to Tim Hortons, right? I mean, that's where
we don't have them down here. But when I lived in New York, that's when they were just expanding into the U.S. It was always great. They're headquartered in Oakville, Ontario.
Yeah, for breakfast and all day long.
Exactly. If only they brought back some of their better donuts, I'd be happy.
There you go. All right, so next up, we're going to see the Rangers, right?
No,
Stars and Kraken.
Yeah, it's going to be down in the Lone Star State. Dallas, a heavy favorite at -200. If you wanted to go with the puck line, it's +120. Either way, I think they'll get the dub over the Kraken. Seattle 10-20-4 this season. Dallas 17-13-2. The Stars are a roller coaster. They'll win 6 straight, they'll lose 5 in a row, they'll win 4 in a row, they'll lose 4 in a row, then they'll go back on a win streak. I think they're bipolar, but that's just the way it goes. Dallas 13-3-1 at home this season. Seattle 4-9-2 on the road. Kraken, they lost 4-3 at Colorado Monday night in a game that I thought was going to be more one-sided than that. Dallas saw their 4-game win streak snapped it with a 2-1 loss to the Blues in a game that they led 1-0 with under 2 minutes to go and still managed to lose in regulation. So congratulations for that. Our good buddy Jim Philippe Grubauer, 7-14-4 with a 334 goals against and an 882 save percentage, supposed to be between the pipes for Seattle. Braden Holtby was put in the COVID protocols for the Stars, so it'll be Jake Ottinger, 8-2-0, 222 goals against, 923 save percentage between the pipes for the Stars. Personally, I think they should make Ottinger the starter. Holtby hasn't been good in how many years now? When did he leave Washington 4 years ago?
Well, I was going to say, since he left the Capitals, I mean, for a number of years, Holtby was a very good goalkeeper. And, he was good between the pipes. But, last couple of years have not been kind to him. And
yeah, I mean, he sucked in Vancouver. They got rid of him.
Right.
And he hasn't been all that great this year. So why not make Ottinger the starter? He's got good numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't argue with an 8-2 mark and a goals against a 2-2-2-2. And his save percentage is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than Grubauer. He'd like to have that save percentage. And that
yeah, he would. So he had it almost ended up having 2 former Capital goalkeepers playing against each other. Seems to be a lot of them out there, but there you go. So
that's why Holtby suddenly got sick.
Yeah. It's like looking across at Grubauer going, maybe this is not a good day. All right, so we go from Dallas and Seattle to, that's right, Montreal and Arizona. As you said, this will not be a TNT featured game tonight.
Well, it actually is the other feature, is the other game in the doubleheader because there's no other game to show.
Oh, that's true. That's right. We had that cancellation. Okay.
Yeah, Minnesota-Edmonton was postponed tonight due to COVID issues with the Oilers, and I believe it also was tied to the attendance limitations in Canada by the Canadian government.
Well, you're a fan of the Leafs. Is this a game that you would watch stay up till 10:30 to watch?
I mean, I stayed up last night to watch the game against Vegas, at least into the third period when I got irritated when they blew a 2-goal lead. They did come back and win in the shootout, so that's a plus. I'll probably watch part of it just because, I want to see if it's empty seat night at the Gila River Arena.
Right.
Or if they try to sign some guy out of the crowd to play. The Leafs, they're 23-8-3. The Coyotes are 7-23-3. Like I said, Toronto playing the second game of back-to-back. They beat Vegas last night 4-3 in a shootout. Mm-hmm. That ended up being a higher scoring game than I thought it would be, but that's because Vegas scored twice in the third to tie it up and force the extra time. Peter Mrazek, who I think is overpaid for playing 3 games this season. He's been hurt more than he's played. 2-1-0 with a 412 goals against and an 88 save percentage is going to start for Toronto after Jack Campbell played last night. Karol Vejmelka, 313-1 with a 330 goals against, a 904 save percentage, and 1 shutout for the Coyotes. It was originally going to be Scott Wedgwood. He was placed in the COVID protocols yesterday. Also, Jacob Chikrin, one of the Coyotes' top defensemen, is in protocols as well. Toronto 7th in the league in goals per game at 3.38. They're 3rd in goals against at 2.5. I hope Mrazek doesn't screw that up. Fortunately, he faces a Coyotes team that's 2nd worst in the league in goals per game. That's right. They passed Montreal. They're at 2.18. However, they're still dead last in goals against. They go up 3.79 goals a night. Toronto's 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with a losing record. They're 20-6 in their last 26 overall. They're 9-3 in their last 12 against Western Conference teams. Arizona 1-4 in their last 5 against Atlantic Division opponents. They're 5-22 in their last 27 against teams with a winning percentage above .600. And Arizona does not play well at home. They are 4-18 in their last 22 at the Gila River Arena. Maybe they should have gotten evicted. They could have found a new arena. Maybe they could have played better there.
What is it about Arizona and professional sports teams and playing at home? It's like the only one that can win is the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, that's true. Because
Arizona,
like we were talking the other day.
At home,
we talked about this the other day because the Cardinals were 3-5 at home and 8-1 on the road.
Right. That's weird. I mean, I don't know. The Valley of the Sun's not a bad place to hang out. I'm not quite sure why they can't. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're out playing golf too much, and they should be.
Okay, James, you're from Arizona. Why don't you tell us why teams from Arizona can't win at home? Why don't the Diamondbacks win at home? Why don't the Coyotes win at home? Why don't the Cardinals win at home? Why are the Suns have the ability to win in their own building? I want to know because I've been down in Arizona. I've been through Sierra Vista and Fort Huachuca and Tucson and all that. So I know how things can go down there. Well, I know it's not a hockey town. It wasn't a hockey town 25 years ago when they moved the Jets down there. But, I mean, what about the Diamondbacks? Why do they play so horribly at Chase Field? Is it because of the pool? I mean, why do the Cardinals play bad? Why do they need a dome? It's not like they're playing in monsoon season. I mean, I know you know how things get down in the summertime down there with the monsoons where it'll rain for torrentially and flood the streets for 10 minutes. And then 5 minutes after that, the sun's out and there's steam coming off the sidewalks. And there you go. James says that's a good question. He wants to know that too.
James, I'll tell you what, if we knew that, we'd all be doing well. Buddy,
he's in Phoenix.
You know, it's funny because I'll tell you what, it's about as beautiful a place as you want to see in the country. I mean, it's a great place to hang out. I mean, Phoenix is beautiful.
Well, let me ask you this, James. Have you been to the Gila River Arena? If not, would you go if somebody actually gave you a ticket? Or would you say, hell no, I'm not going to watch that dumpster fire?
Right.
That's what the want to know.
It's like Jack Kent Cook.
It was a free ticket.
Yeah. It's like what Jack Kent Cook said whenever he brought the Kings to Los Angeles. He said, who knew that with 3 million people from Canada living in the greater Los Angeles area, they were the 3 million people that didn't like hockey. Because only the first year that the Kings played, they played before about, on an average, 4,000 people in the arena that seated about 10,000, if I'm not mistaken there. And so Mr. King being someone who's always had a great wit, he was basically saying, you know, I didn't realize that I brought the hockey team to Los Angeles, where in Los Angeles County, 3 million Canadians live in. They were the 3 million that left Canada because they didn't like hockey. So maybe that entire situation, because there are a lot of Canadians, by the way, who live in the Maricopa County area in Phoenix. So
now the funny thing is,
maybe they don't like it either.
The funny thing is about tonight, it's a homecoming for Austin Matthews because he's from Arizona.
Really?
Yeah, watch him light it up and torch Phoenix again. There's talk that Phoenix would try to get him as a free agent. I don't think they could back up 3 Brinks trucks and dump it in his front lawn, and he still wouldn't go there because he wants to actually play in front of fans. I mean, he can't right now in Toronto because of the way things are, but at least there's an excuse. In Arizona, there isn't one other than the fact that nobody wants to pay money to watch the Coyotes.
That's as good a reason as I can think of. Let's go to
Well,
the.
James at least said he would go if he got a free ticket.
Oh, there you go. All right, James. We'll see. Let's see. Maybe as we speak out here, you never know. There might be some benevolent person out there that wants to give you a ticket to the game. All right,
Because
buddy.
there's plenty of good seats still available.
Yeah, as the old saying goes. At the at the beautiful ELO Arena down there in Arizona.
So now, James, would you go to watch the Coyotes, or would you just go because there's a bunch of casinos and hotels right next to the Gila River Arena over there in Glendale? That's the big question. Would you be going because of the casinos, or would you actually go to the game? Because then you'd have to pay for overpriced beer and all that other stuff. Because God knows, I'm sure that's the only way that they can make any money as far as watching the Coyotes. Because you have to be drunk to watch them.
It helps. All right, let's go to the association. Get out of here before we get into more trouble. Sixers and the Hornets.
Yeah, that's coming to you from the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. The 76ers favored by 5 over the Hornets. The Hornets 22-19 this year. Philadelphia 23-16. Charlotte's been on a bit of a roll. They've won 6-8. They took a 2-game set from the Bucks. Both those games coming at the Spectrum Center. But they now have to go on the road and face a Philadelphia team that's won 7 in a row. Strangely, and we talked about this the other day, Jim, the 76ers, normally they play well at home and they're terrible on the road. But this year, they're 15-8 as a road team, but they're just 8-8 at the Wells Fargo Center. What the hell's going on there?
I don't know, but they don't want the crowd booing at them. They better be careful.
See, he's not the best color man in sports for nothing, folks. That broadcasting school really paid off.
That's right.
Charlotte 10-14 on the road. Kelly Oubre Jr. will be out for the Hornets tonight. He's in the health and safety protocols. That's a big blow for them. He's played really well. Torched the Pistons last week when he hit 9 threes. Also out for Charlotte, according to the latest update, Vernon Carey Jr., but nobody cares about him because he's from Duke and barely plays. For the 76ers, Tobias Harris is probable with a shoulder injury. Shake Milton out with a back injury. Jaden Springer is down in the G League. Seth Curry questionable with an ankle injury. So Tyrese Maxey apparently is going to clear protocol, so he should be back on the floor tonight for Philadelphia, which is a nice boost for them. He's been a good, versatile third scorer in that lineup. We don't need to talk about Ben Simmons, so we won't. The 76ers, they've won the last 16 meetings between these teams going back to 2016. They're 5-0 in their last 5 overall. They're 4-0 in their last 4 after an ATS win. They're 5-0 in their last 5 after a straight-up win. I get Charlotte's played good basketball of late, but you're running into a Philadelphia team that has seemingly found themselves after stumbling like a drunken hobo through the first 2 months of the season. They've now won 7 in a row. I get 2 of those came over the Rockets, but that's not my fault. I didn't write the schedule.
Right.
Plus, you've got Joel Embiid healthy. If Harris is going to play and you're going to have Maxey, and if Curry can take the floor, there's just too many weapons for Charlotte. Even as good as the Hornets have been offensively, they're second in the league. Their problem is they can't stop anybody. They're 29th in scoring defense at 115.9 points a game. Philadelphia should be able to exploit that and come up with the victory at home. And there you go, Jim. James says beer at the Gila Arena is $16.
Whoa. I
think with free refills.
I'll tell you what, that $16 for beer at an arena, no wonder the team's playing poorly. And no wonder there's no fans there. If that's what it costs, I'll tell you what, you're in trouble. All right, let's go from Charlotte and Philadelphia on to the Mavs.
No, I went too far.
Which way are we going there, boss?
We're going to this one.
We're going to this one? Okay. San Antonio and the Rockets were Lone Star State, 2 teams with a lot of history against each other.
Yeah, and they've also struggled of late too. But this one's coming to you from the what is the AT&T Center? Is that what they call it now?
In San Antonio?
Former Alamo Dome.
That's that. No, well, actually, the AT&T Center is a totally different building than the Alamo Dome.
I just remember the Alamo Dome.
It's a purely basketball arena they built a few years ago. So the AT&T Center on the river in San Antonio.
Well, yeah, Houston is horrible. We've talked about that. They're 11-30.
Yeah.
San Antonio is 15-25, but they're sadly both these teams are still in the playoff picture because the bottom of the Western Conference is that bad. If you look, San Antonio is 1 game behind Portland for the final spot in the play-in tournament. As bad as Houston's played, they're only 6 games out. Yes, that just shows you that the bottom of the West, the top of the West is crowded, the bottom of the West is crowded. Then you got those teams in the middle that nobody cares about. On the plus side, the Spurs get to play at home, which is a nice change of pace for them. They just finished a 7-game road trip where they went 1-6 after losing to the Knicks in the second game of a back-to-back Monday night. On the plus side, the Spurs don't have to leave the state of Texas until the end of January. Even when they go on the road, they'll play either them, the Rockets, or the Mavs. So it gives them a bit of a break from traveling around the country. Houston, they lost 3 straight and 11-12. They got dumped 111-91 at home by Philadelphia on Monday. Spurs are 10th in scoring offense at 110.5 points a game. They're 10th in field goal percentage and 13th in three-point shooting. Meanwhile, Houston, we talked about how Charlotte was second to worst in the league in scoring defense. Here's the worst. The Rockets are 30th, 116.4 points a game. They're 28th in field goal percentage. The Spurs are expected to be minus Doug McDermott, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones, and Derek White. But kudos or bonus points if you can name anybody in the starting 5 for the Rockets that's not named Eric Gordon or Christian Wood, because there are a bunch of no-names that it's like, the epitome of when Charles Barkley they say you play for the team on the name on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back. If you saw the name on the back, you wouldn't know who the hell these guys were anyway.
So there you go.
The Rockets are 3-13 against the spread in their last 16 overall, 1-9 in their last 10 after an ATS loss, 1-9 against the spread in their last 10 following a straight-up loss. Take the Spurs at home, give the points,
and move on.
Yeah, Houston's defense is horrible. That's pretty much all you need to know.
All right, moving on, as we said, from the Spurs. Okay, now the Mavs and the Knicks, and giving the Mavs the bucket advantage over the New York Knickerbockers.
Yeah, and this one's on the road in the Big Apple at Madison Square Garden. The Mavs 22-18 this year. The Knicks are 20-21. Dallas coming off that impressive 113-99 home win on Sunday that snapped Chicago's 9-game win streak. By the way, we talked to you yesterday about Chicago giving up 14 points against Detroit. Mm-hmm. Good God, that game was over in a hurry, wasn't it?
It was quick.
Final score was Chicago 133, Detroit 87. So they covered that triple.
Yeah.
They still had points left over. So there's that. The Knicks beat San Antonio Monday night at home. The Knicks 10-11 at home this season. I don't know what it is. Both the Knicks and the Nets are struggling at home this year, which is strange. Dallas 11-10 on the road. This is going to be a good defensive battle. The Mavs are third in scoring defense at 103.3 points per game, 16th in field goal percentage defense, 12th in three-point defense. The Knicks are sixth in scoring defense at 105 points per game, and they're fifth in field goal percentage defense. Kemba Walker and Nerlens Noel are questionable for the Knicks. For Dallas, Willie Cauley-Stein still isn't playing. Kristaps Porzingis is expected to miss the game as he's still in the health and safety protocols. Also for the Knicks, Taj Gibson is questionable with a sore wrist. Derrick Rose, of course, out till February after ankle surgery. Whoops. Mavs 4-0 in their last 4 overall, 4-0 in their last 4 after a straight-up win. 5-1 in their last 6 on Wednesday. The Knicks 1-4 in their last 5 on Wednesday. They are 0-7 against the spread at home in their last 7 against teams with a winning road record. I know that the Mavs won't have Porzingis more than likely, but they've got Luka Doncic and they've got Tim Hardaway Jr. The Knicks have Julius Randle, and not a whole lot else. Look for the Mavs to get the win on the road.
There you go, boys and girls. How about before we move on to 2 for the money, let's talk a little bit about our friends and our sponsors at Caesar Sportsbook. Now, Caesar Sportsbook, as we've been telling you, is really doing a great job of getting you involved with their new ventures in states all around the country. And the way they're doing that is they're working with us at Winners and Whiners, where you're going to get a deal from them. And that deal is that they will match whatever your first wager is with regards to using their app or using their online, all the way up to $1,000, okay? But you have to use the promo code, and the promo code is, of course, Video Winners, okay? So that's in the show box below. So use Video Winners in the first wager that you make using the Caesars sports app or their online service, and they'll match your first wager dollar for dollar all the way up to $1,000. Now, today we found out that we're going to have a fun deal if you're in the state of New York. Okay, now if you happen to be in a New York state of mind, well, they've got what they call the Empire State Royal Welcome from Caesars. And that means that you get $300 in bonus cash once you sign up. Plus, they're going to match your first deposit up to $3,000, but you have to use the promo code from right here at Winners and Whiners, Whiners New. That's Whiners New is the promo code to get that deal if you're in New York. And again, that's called the Empire State Royal Welcome. You get $300 in bonus cash on sign up. Plus, they're going to match your first deposit all the way up to $3,000. Okay, so that, friends, is a deal. And welcome to New York from the standpoint of wagering. As we say before and said numerous times, that is from standpoint of you have to be 21 years or older to wager. And as we've said again, both Caesars and those of us here at Winners and Whiners, please wager responsibly. All right. Okay, we're going to go for two for the money, man. And two for the money today is not that. There it is. Okay.
One quick thing, Jim. James asked why the Heat are going off at minus 650 to win the Southeast Division. Well, James, I think the safest answer to give you on that fact is the fact that they still lead the division despite the fact that they don't have Jimmy Butler,
right,
Oladipo, Bam Adebayo, and others. Meanwhile, Washington just had Brad Beal enter the protocols yesterday, taking him out of the mix. Charlotte can't stop anybody on defense. Atlanta's been horrible, and I think we can just forget about talking about Orlando as being a threat to win anything other than, maybe some ping pong balls. Yeah. But that's probably the safest bet as to why it's so high. That's why if you look around at some of the other divisions, depending on where you look, Utah goes anywhere from minus 4,500 to minus 10,000 to win the Northwest because they've already lapped the field, even with the struggles they've had in the last few games. It's basically comes down to, where they are compared and, how they've played missing pieces. And like we said, Miami's missed so many pieces, it's hard to keep track of who they got. And that's a credit to what Eric Spoelstra can do as a head coach and what Pat Riley has done as a there with the Heat over the last few years.
And, Spoelstra with Miami, and you've said this many times, they still play good defense. Even though they're using a mixed mash up of different players, time and time again, Eric rolls out the ball, and those guys have played defense to their credit. So, until somebody can prove otherwise, there's no reason to believe they're not going to win.
And you're getting good offensive production from guys, too. Nobody expects guys like Gabe Vincent or, Duncan Robinson or Max Struss. You don't expect half these guys to come up and put up double-digit points or 20-some points a night. But they pop up on any given night, and it's always somebody different. It's not always the same guy. It's not like, some of the other teams where it's gonna be one of two guys that lead you in scoring or whatever.
Right.
They have a different guy pop up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of versatility pays dividends as the season wears on.
Absolutely.
As for Daryl, real quick, we talked about LSU. We like them. I'm going to get to Colorado State in a minute. Longwood, I don't know if I have a ton of faith giving points at Radford. The Lancers are 0-4 at home this year, or on the road this year. And their best win is over Maryland, Baltimore County, who's rated 241st in the rankings. I get that Griff Aldrich has done a decent job. But, giving points on the road is a dangerous concept, especially when you haven't won there yet. I would probably lean towards Radford if I had to make a call on that one. It's not a game that I would be crazy about either way. And TCU, Kansas State, I know Bruce Weber's team had some issues with COVID. Let me see if there's an update on what they're looking at. I still see 1, 2, 3, 4 guys out indefinitely. That's a shaky concept there. I mean, TCU's played good basketball for Jamie Dixon. I would probably take the Horned Frogs and the points just because I have to wonder if Kansas State can score enough points and if their defense can hold up late in the game. We saw that against Texas last week where they played well for about 30 minutes and then wilted down the stretch because they didn't have enough players on the bench to work with. So I would probably lean towards TCU. But to go back to the top or the two for the money segment, Jim, like we said, Dallas over Seattle. I have no faith in Grubauer. I have no faith in the Kraken, who have struggled on the road. You can play the puck line there if you want to. All a matter of choice. And then, like we said, the Spurs over the Rockets. Houston, well, they're terrible. And, they're on the road here. San Antonio is happy to be home after that 1-6 road trip. You have to think they'll prevail. Then we talked about Toronto over the Cactus. Bring money, according to James, if you're going to go to the Gila River Arena to buy beer.
Right.
It'll probably be the most expensive time you got drunk in your life if you're paying $16 for a beer over there. You might be crying in it after Austin Matthews scores a couple times.
I was just going to say, this is our first, correct me if I'm wrong, this is our first Pacific Tigers sighting this year.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean,
it's a great conference out there.
Yeah, they're not the same team they were when David Stoudemire was coaching there, obviously. And the Tigers, they've dropped 4 in a row, and they haven't necessarily been close. They lost by 12 to North Dakota State. They lost by 10 to UC Davis. Those games were at home. Then they lost by 20 to a Cal team that nobody's going to confuse with being a good basketball team.
No.
They lost by 22 to BYU. They've lost 7 out of 8. In fact, they've lost to UC Davis twice. And again, nobody's going to think that Jim Les is, as insignificant as he was as a big man in the NBA, he hasn't been all that much better as a coach. But he does have those 2 wins against Pacific. So,
right.
But yeah, Santa Clara, the Broncos, Herb Sendek. Obviously, you probably remember him, Jim, from NC State.
Yeah, sure.
Or Miami of Ohio before that. They've won 3 in a row. They're coming off a 22-point road win over San Jose State. I get that they haven't played in 3 weeks, but, Sendek's been around the block a few times.
Mm-hmm.
He'll have his team ready to go, and Pacific has just been, they've been awful.
Let's check out the force.
All right. Yeah, like we said, Michigan State, we said at the beginning of the show, minus 11.5 over Minnesota. The Golden Gophers don't rebound. Michigan State does. Michigan State shoots from the outside. Minnesota's in trouble. I don't think I can sum it up.
Skip the next one and go to the Philadelphia 76ers.
Jim doesn't want us to talk about how LSU is getting points on the road and should beat Florida.
Yeah,
I think they'll win that. But yeah, Philadelphia over Charlotte. The Hornets don't play defense. Philadelphia is pretty healthy. Losing Oubre is going to be a blow for the Hornets. And then we talked about Boston over Montreal. The Canadiens are a dumpster fire. They're 2-13-3 on the road. Kenny Albert gets the joy of calling the Bruins game. They'll have their top line of Pasternak, Marchand, and Bergeron back. Montreal doesn't have a top line. Montreal doesn't have a second line. Montreal's got 4 third lines.
There you go.
And that's going to be the difference in this one.
There you go. All right, let's go to the big one. This is our fun one, folks. Mix and match.
Yeah, like we said, mix and match whatever you want. Make it work for you. Drake minus 12.5 over Illinois State. You talk about a team that can't stop anybody. If you're looking for one of those, you've come to the right place. The Redbirds are horrible on the defensive end of the floor. I don't know if Dan Muller, learned that from Dan Mullen about not playing defense, but they just give up a ton of points on a regular basis. They've given up 100 3 times already. They give up 80 points on a regular, and that's considered a good night. Somehow they're 8-7, but they're facing a Drake team. Obviously, Drake is a very good mid-major team. They had a run last year. They're 11-5 on the year. They're playing at home. I think that they should take care of business over Illinois State.
I can do the next one for you. SMU's good. South Florida's not. Keep going.
Yeah, Jim is as a South Florida alum. We talked about them last week against Houston. It was a similar point spread there.
Yeah.
We said take the Cougars. The Cougars covered. I expect the same sort of thing here. I won't beat Jim over the head with it. We'll
appreciate that. Colorado State sounds like a good place to go next.
Yeah, Nico Medved. I saw him when he was a coach at Furman. He did a good job over here. He's now gone to Colorado State. That team is 11-1. I know they're coming off their first loss of the year. They were thrashed by San Diego State. But, there's a lot of good teams that get beat by San Diego State.
San Diego State's not a bad team.
Right. Utah State, this isn't the Utah State team you saw in the tournament the last couple of years. A, you don't have Craig Smith as your coach. B, you don't have Sam Merrill. C, you don't have Neemias Queta. You're talking about a team in Utah State that lost 49-47 to Air Force earlier this season. It's 47 points. I mean, I know that's an Air Force style of game, but come on. Of course, they have Ryan Odom. Everybody, you may or may not know, was the coach at UMBC when they were the first 16 seed to upset number 1 when they beat Virginia a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. He parlayed that into a deal at Utah State. If this was in Logan, I would lean toward Utah State. It's not. Everybody knows playing at Fort Collins is very difficult. And the Rams are playing good basketball, and I think they'll cover the line there. Finally, Xavier. This line switched overnight, too. Originally, Villanova was favored by a bucket. It's now Xavier minus 1.5 at the Cintas Center in Cincinnati. I look for Xavier to beat Villanova. The Wildcats have had their struggles on the road. Atlanta minus 4.5 over the Heat. We just talked about how the Heat are beat up. I get that they have guys that step up, but the Heat have not won in Atlanta in 3 years. The Hawks are getting some guys back. I think they can hold off Miami. Super Sly, you're right. Bradley Beal probably won't play, but we're talking about Orlando here. I know Washington was fortunate to escape with a 2-point road win over the Magic Sunday night, and then the Thunder last night by 4. But we're talking about Orlando, and last I checked, let me double check my injury report. Mo Bamba is expected to miss the game again with a toe sprain. They're not sure if Wendell Carter Jr. is going to play with a hamstring injury. And then you still have, Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, each one more, Michael Carter-Williams all out, and Jalen Suggs still out with that broken thumb. So you're relying a lot on Gary Harris and hoping that Cole Anthony can keep you in the game. I just don't know if they can do it on the road. The Lakers minus 3.5 over Sacramento. There's not a whole lot we can say about Sacramento that hasn't already been said. I feel bad for Elvin Gentry. Not
much we can say about the Leafs and the Coyotes that we've already said.
Yeah, I look for that to stay under the total. Just because Arizona doesn't score. On the flip side, Montreal hasn't played in a week and a half. They've been horrible on the road. Boston should get 4, maybe 5 goals in this one to push it over. I look for Seattle and Dallas to stay under 6 just because the Stars play well on home ice. James, are you asking me about Belmont or Chattanooga? Because I see that you're talking about you're talking about Belmont, right? Casey Alexander's got a really good team there. He's got a veteran team. A lot of his guys came back from last season. Nick Muszynski, their center, is a big scoring threat. Ben Shepherd is good. Will Richard is good. Luke Smith, they're all seniors. So is Grayson Murphy. So, I mean, they're starting, 3 seniors, and then they've got a couple more seniors that come off the bench. They're not a slouch. They are 12-3 this year. Their 3 losses, they lost to Ohio State. Or not Ohio State, I'm sorry. They lost to LSU. They lost to Ohio in their opener, and they lost to Dayton by 2 on a neutral floor. They've also they beat Drake, they beat Iona. Those are 2 good teams that we've talked about. They've beaten Furman. They beat St. Louis, who was another good team out of the A-10. I wouldn't sleep on them against Austin Peay. I know that, Jim, you remember some good days from the Governors back in the old days. They're not good right now. They've lost 6 straight coming in this one, including pulling off the feat of losing to both North and South Florida in back-to-back games back in December.
Hey, the Bulls get a win.
Yeah, so Belmont, I think, is in good shape. Chattanooga, the Mocs, they're a good team down there in the SoCon.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing a Western Carolina team, the Catamounts. They're not overly impressive. Justin Gray's team, they've lost 5 of their last 6 coming into this one. They were dumped by East Tennessee State on Monday night. Let me just double check what the line is on that one real quick. Let's see. Chattanooga's giving, let's see, 13. Well, the good part is Western Carolina, they can score, but they don't play defense. They give up 79.4 points a game, which is 347th in the nation. The Mocs are 52nd in scoring offense, but they play good defense. I think that the Mocs should have enough to take down Western Carolina on the road. They're a pretty good team. Daryl, we talked about Vermont beating Stony Brook earlier. I think the Catamounts, just like we said last week, New Hampshire goes to Vermont. They get maple syrup. They get their butts kicked. They go home and eat pancakes. Same thing here with Stony Brook.
There you go. Any last questions there, boys? Angles?
I see Daryl's asking about Gardner Webb real quick. I'll take a quick look at that.
Okay.
Because I know you've got to go too, Jim.
Well,
they're playing Presbyterian. Being from around that area, I can tell you Presbyterian is not very good. They've lost 4 out of 5, including probably most damning, they lost to USC Upstate, another team that is not very good. The USC Upstate Spartans are 4-10. They lost by double digits to them at home. So I would say Gardner Webb, I know that this is not the team that we saw a few years ago, but they've won 4 in a row. They beat Georgia in that stretch in Athens. They're coming off a win over Hampton at home. Gardner Webb should have little problem dispatching Presbyterian on their own floor here.
All right. Well, folks, it's been fun. Thanks for joining us at a 1 o'clock edition. Our Wednesday shows will be 1 o'clock. Every time else, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday will be at 1:30. Okay.
So if you hit the like button.
Yeah, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, and you'll know. Okay. So thanks for coming. We greatly appreciate it. As always, thanks to Chris King. I'm Jim Williams. Have a wonderful and a fun Wednesday afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow, guys. 1:30 right here.